have all been examined and found perfect. The Cleveland people will go to any sport event in Cleveland providing they get a perfect exhibition and get what they pay for. I think tonight they're getting more than they paid for. The Cleveland Boxing Commission, who I speak for here today, is going to expect nothing but the best from you gentlemen. I hope that you gentlemen will oppose one another, give the Cleveland Boxing Commission one of the best exhibitions they ever had, so that fight from now on will come out ahead of New York or any other big town in the United States, and Cleveland will be first. So I hope you boys will go out, give the public what they want, go out there and give them best exhibition that you could, and may the best man win. Good luck to you all.
Mr. Commissioner, if these boys don't go all out, the Cleveland Boxing Commission has the right to withhold the purses and so forth?
Withhold their purses and suspend them, Tom, if necessary.
I want to tell you, Mr. Commissioner, you're not going to uphold any of these purses tonight because these kids go all out.
I don't think so, Tom.
And speaking of the doctors, ladies and gentlemen, I do want you to meet the doctors. And may I have your name?
Dr. Chambers.
Dr. Chambers?
Dr. Lambright.
Doctor, how did you find the boys today?
Found all the boys in good physical condition, Tom.
Not necessary for any postponements?
None.
The hearts are all right?
Fine.
The brains are all right? Doctor, how did you find them?
I found them in very good condition. I think one of the marks of a good fighter is a slow pulse, and we found that most of these fighters have a very good slow pulse.
Thank you, doctors. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to turn this microphone back to the matchmaker. Ed Bang and yours truly will greet you a little later on, but here are some people that I'm sure that you want to meet. I don't know what he's doing with my colleague Steve Ellis over there. You probably won't be able to understand what he says, but anyway, take it away, Larry Atkins. I'm only kidding.
Thanks, Tom Manning. Ladies and gentlemen, might I first introduce the gentleman sitting with me. The extreme right is Jack Hurley. They've given a new name, call him Professor Jack Hurley, probably because he has brought Harry Matthews up from about the 10th ranking light heavyweight to the top one. They used to call him the Undertaker. We used to bury fighters. But that's all in the spirit of jest. And next to me is a gentleman who was a very great fighter 20 years ago, Tony Cancella, who has developed, and he deserves a lot of credit for developing, Danny Nardico. And on my left is Steve Ellis, who has... Tom Manning has told you before, you've heard his voice on hundreds of occasions, broadcasting sports events. I'm going to take the liberty of having Steve Ellis carry on from here.
All right, Larry, it's wonderful to be here with you, and of course the redhead, a guy that's been around radio since 1812, a guy like Tom Manning. Anyway, there's another guy that is right near us, Jack Ledden, but I'd like to talk with your professor and Tony Cancella, a one-time outstanding heavyweight. Professor, first off, what do you call your great fighter, Harry Matthews, when you're speaking about him? That I think the fans should know.
Well, I think that I've given him the proper title. I call him the athlete, and which he is. He's an all-around athlete.
He is. Tony Cancella, do you have any favorite names that you use on Danny Nardico, one of the hardest punchers in the boxing business?
No, I have no favorite name, Steve. The only thing about Danny is he's a hard-working boy, and he also is a very good athlete.
Well, I know he is. I've watched him several times. In fact, had the opportunity to broadcast many of his outstanding fights. Well, Tony, the fans would like to know, I'm sure, in this great show that Mr. Bang and Larry Atkins are putting on this evening for them, would like to know what you think Danny Nardico's chances are of maybe scoring the upset of the year in fisting.
Well, I've read several write-ups from different sport writers in Cleveland, and they talk about upsets in the past. And I think you'll probably see one tonight.
In other words, you feel that Danny can pull the unexpected and surprise better than 13,000 fans and fanettes this evening.
Well, Jack Hurley is a very good friend of mine for many years when I was just a kid boxing around the country. And I hate to put him out of business, but I may have to do it.
In other words, he's going to start having to look around Boise, Idaho, or Seattle for somebody new.
I've got to go back to the stakes.
Go back to the stakes. Well, Mr. Professor, we've been sliding you just a little tiny bit. Do you think you're going to have to take that tour from Cleveland after midnight tonight and go back to the sticks, or do you feel that you can win, as some of the fans feel, too?
Well, Steve, the athlete's been in with some pretty good
The who?
fighters. The athlete.
The athlete, go ahead.
And he's had 30 fights for me, and he won them all, and 25 by knockouts. And since the Bob Murphy fight in New York last March 2nd, he's had 12 fights, and he knocked 12 men out. And so he's a kind of an old pro, and when the bell rings tonight, I think you'll see a pretty good fighter take charge of the affair, and I hope that he can continue with that record, because I wouldn't want to have it ruined now this late in the year.
This late in the year for you, or this late in the season for Harry?
Well, he's going to have this fight, and then he's going to Omaha for one more, and then I got to send him home to for Christmas. So I want him to have an unblemished record for the year.
Unblemished? Don't use those big ones. I get enough of that with Lester Bromberg. Don't give me big words. Unblemished record.
Yes, I would like to have him score a knockout here and one in Omaha, and then call it quits for the balance of this year.
Well, I'll tell you, as far as the knockout is concerned, we're going to have the opportunity, Lester and myself, broadcasting the fight, and we've rehearsed up to the 8th round now on the blow-by-blow, so don't make us work for nothing now. But, Jack, seriously, who would you like to fight if you get by tonight in what I think is a tough fight for you?
Yeah, well, Steve, you're absolutely right. It is it's a dangerous fight. Danny Nardico is a real good puncher, and we're not holding him cheap at all. Matthews is a good fighter, and he'll have to prove it tonight to win. And after tonight, I hope that next year I can steer him into a match with Rocky Marciano or Joe Walcott.
Rocky Marciano or Joe Walcott. What about the kid who hangs around this town? I think his name is Maxim or something like that. Would you fight him?
I have been trying to get NRS Kearns in a light heavyweight championship match now for a year and a half, and sometimes it takes me a little long to catch on, but I think maybe Kearns doesn't want the match.
You don't think he does?
I've decided to cast our lot in the heavyweight division. I think maybe he'll have more success there.
All right, then, as a quick closing one, Jack, we're of course going to wish both you and Danny, and Tony, rather, the managers, the best of luck. And as a closing one, you want to give us, very fast, the way you think it's going to end, what round and so forth, and then we'll ask Tony the same question.
Steve, I wouldn't want to venture a guess on that. I tell you, it's a very dangerous fight,
right,
and Matthews will try to win it as quickly as possible.
All right. And Tony, supposing we hear from you, I know your guy's in wonderful condition, too. What's your statement on the outcome of the big fight?
Steve, once the bell rings, my fighter tries to win as quick as possible. When? I don't know. I know he's fighting a good man, a seasoned fighter, and I think my fighter is ready to meet that kind of a fighter.
Well, all right, then we wish you both the very best. It's going to be a great one, I'm sure. So to Jack Hurley, manager of the Athlete, and to Tony Cancella, manager of Danny Nardico, the best. And Larry, what do you want to say to these two guys?
Just add a little bit to you.
Go ahead.
May the better man win.
And that's correct English, too. May the better man win.
And Jack Ledden, the Cleveland News, would like to bring in you people who've been reading Jack Ledden's sport articles. Jack has done a lot for boxing since he came to Cleveland several years ago. And with us is another gentleman who I believe knows as much about boxing as any man in the country, Dan Taylor of Cleveland Press. He's photogenic, I believe, but a little shy.
Where's Dan? Dan, come on.
Anyhow, Jack, what is your version of tonight's fight?
Well, Larry, I think that there's going to be more knockouts tonight than decisions. There's too many punches on this card for these bouts to go the limit. There's going to be at least 3, possibly 4 knockouts tonight. That's the way I see it.
Thank you very much, Jack Ledden. Keep on talking, Steve. That's your business.
All right, that's great. Well, Jack, do you want to try to pick some winners for us in the 4 fights, or is that putting you on the spot while we're waiting for Dan Taylor to come on?
No, Steve, of course people pay a nickel for this on the street, but I'll give it out here for nothing.
Go ahead.
I picked Matthews to knock out Nardico. I think Harrison will beat Zivic. I believe VR will stop Young. I look for Greco to stop Mistovich. And if any of the families of those people I picked to lose are mad at me, I will apologize in the paper tomorrow if they prove I'm wrong.
Well, that's well spoken. Right. That's one guy's opinion, Jack, and you're a wonderful boxing writer. I'll go along with what Larry says. You're really an outstanding guy in that department. Dan doesn't see... Dan seems
Dan
to
is
be...
not here, Steve.
He's camera shy.
Might I take the liberty of mentioning the names of a few fighters and managers who are here. We have Eddie Walker. He's been around. My father used to tell me about him. He's the manager of Mistovich. You have Johnny Keel, Johnny Papke, Jimmy Avon, Frankie Wallace. He was a good fighter in the early 1900s. Mike Mealy, the manager of Hairston. And Whitey Bimstein, the internationally famous trainer of fighters.
There's another great sports writer back there. Came in from Stamford, Connecticut. Mo Magliola, the Stamford Advocate.
How can you see that far?
I got pretty good 20/20 some days. But that's the guy back there, the good-looking fella. Who else do you have here?
Well, we got a lot of back there. The fellas are a little shy.
Want Whitey Bimstein to come up for a quick one?
Well, just come up here. Oh, no, he's not photogenic at
No,
all.
leave him where he
Ted
is.
Crystal from Pittsburgh's over here.
Right.
And I know that there's a lot of people from Pittsburgh coming to see Zivic, but in conclusion, let me say this. Everybody's in great shape. May the best man, as I say, win. And now back to Tom Manning and Ed Bang.
Bye, everybody.
See you again.
Say, Ed, those fellas did quite a job up there.
Couldn't have been better, I don't think, Tom.
Wasn't it a thrill to see Jack Hurley and all the gang again?
Well, it brings back a lot of memories when you see a fellow like Jack around you again.
He's a great fight manager. He's got a great boy, too.
He's got one of the best in the world today. I think the fella is headed right for the heavyweight championship.
What about Joey Maxim first? What would be your prediction on that, Ed?
My prediction on that is Joey might possibly outpoint him, outbox him, but if it came to a knockout, I would pick Matthews.
Well, look, Ed, what I want to talk to you about very seriously. Folks, we're down in another studio now. The boxers are all upstairs. Ed, you put in about 12 months on this particular card. This is your 26th year.
26 is right.
About how much money have you made totally, Ed?
Well, including the receipts on this fight, Tom, I think our total will go over $500,000 that we've turned over to the poor and needy of Cleveland.
What do you mean? Let's elaborate on that. What do you mean, the poor and needy? What do you do with this money?
Well, we used to distribute it ourselves with a medium of baskets and clothing and toys. Years gone by, but in late years we turn all the money over to the Cleveland Welfare Association. They have their finger on the pulse of all the poor and needy, and accordingly they send checks or send clothing or groceries or something of that nature.
Ed, who buys the bulk of these tickets for this great show?
Well, the masses and the classes, I would say. We've had a fellow like Bill Shipley bought 100 patron tickets, Ed Keel 75, Hank Hogue 50, Bud Schumann 50, and so on, Mickey McBride, and so on down the line. But they come in by 2s and 3s and 6s and 8s and 10s from the business people. And then the thousands of others who can only afford $3 or $6, we take excellent care of them too, Tom.
Well, the news has done a magnificent job, not only in boxing, but the news has its finger in the pie for young America. I know I do the soapbox derby. That's a wonderful event. But, of course, nothing can surpass this steel of yours, bringing these boxers. Ed, how did you get these boxers? Nobody else can get them.
Well, Larry and I got our heads together some time ago, and I said, the first man that I want on our card, Larry, is this Harry Matthews. Especially after he took care of this young Irish boy from down east, you know.
Murphy.
Bob Murphy, yes. And Larry went to work, and of course Jack had other ideas at first, but we finally won him over, and we're paying him $25,000 to have this boy appear here tonight. And with Nardico, we looked around for a suitable opponent, and we came up with Nardico, whom we consider a great slugger, a great puncher, and all that sort of thing. And we're paying him $10,000 with a possible bonus if the receipts go over a certain amount. And so on down the line. You take this boy Hairston now, for instance. He's been the toast of television, you know, and has a tremendous following. They like him because he's on the go every minute of the time. Now he's getting $6,000, and so on down the line, Tom. We're paying good money, and as I say, we're spending $54,000. It's taken 2 months of hard work on the part of Larry particularly in staying down in New York and bringing these things to a head. But finally brought it to a head, and we went right along with it, and as soon as it was announced, why, we started to get our orders. We sent out close to $50,000 worth of tickets, Tom, in the first mail before we opened the sale.
Oh, that's wonderful, Ed. That's wonderful. What are your profits? What do you estimate them to be for tonight?
Well, I wouldn't know, Tom, offhand, but I'd say we'll go around $24,000, something like that, because we have to cut the IBC in on percentage of the profits because of their cooperation in releasing the Pabst Brewing television and all that sort of thing, you know.
Well, Ed, we've only got a half minute. Ladies and gentlemen, you've met the boxers, you've met their managers, you've met the Boxing Commission, you've met the matchmaker Larry Atkins, now you've met the man who is responsible for it all, Ed Bang, in my book, the greatest writer of all time. I understand that we've lost our picture now, but I'm sure that we had it up until a few seconds ago. So, ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing left at the arena tonight except standing room. So we brought these folks onto your screen today so that you might better know them because they're a great bunch. This is Tom Manning. We're signing off Channel 4 at the moment.
Very nice.
As a special feature, WNBK has brought you an interview with the participants in the Cleveland News Christmas Toy Fun Boxing Show. Your host for the interview was Tom Manning.